Sure. Well, welcome everyone. It's such a pleasure to welcome you all today to our webinar series, the second out of the three we're giving. This one will be focused on the NLCD, and we'll be talking in depth about how to access it and the resources that we've developed around it. My name is Aude Chenet. I'm the Executive Director of Village Earth, which is the organization that's the origin of the Native Lands Advocacy Project. And Emma will tell you a little bit more about that afterwards and pass it on to Lauren.
Thank you, Ode. Ocio ni God. My name is Marin Morfitt. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation living in Oklahoma. I am the writer-researcher for the Native Lands Advocacy Project, and I am very excited to share this time with everyone today. And I can pass it on to Emma now.
Perfect timing. We had a slight technical issue there, but we got it solved. So hello, if you're joining us from Facebook as well. Yeah, thank you guys. Dillahan, hello. My name is Emma Shear. I am a citizen of the Tolowa Dani Nation in Northwestern California. I'm currently located in the state of Missouri, though, and I am the communications director for the Native Lands Advocacy Project. Excited to have you all here today. Excited to talk about some of these data tools. A couple little housekeeping notes, as we often do at the beginning of these webinars. We are recording this, and so if you aren't able to stay the whole time, or if you think this would be useful to someone who wasn't able to make it, we will be sharing a link to the recorded webinar. Probably by the end of this week, we'll just email that out. We've also enabled closed captioning this time. That was a request last time, and unfortunately our settings just weren't configured to it. So that should be available to you now. We hope that's useful to anyone who would benefit from that. And we will be having a time for questions and answers at the end. And so if at any point throughout this presentation you have any questions, please feel free to just drop them in that Q&A box, and we'll do our best to address them all at the end. Also, we'll have our contact info at the end, so if there's a question that might be a little bit more in depth, or maybe you don't feel comfortable asking publicly, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to meet with you, see how we can be of assistance to you. We are currently in the middle of a webinar series that we're calling Keystone Data Tools for Native Land Planning. We have a lot of resources on our site, and they're useful for a variety of purposes, but this webinar series is really focusing on some of our more foundational ones, ones that we use often in our research, that we see our partners using a lot, that we see being cited in a lot of other research, academic journals, people's kind of university level research, and tools that are really buildable, that can really be combined with other data in a variety of ways very powerfully. And so last month, our first webinar in this series, we talked about the census of agriculture for American Indian reservations and how you can access that data using one of our data tools. And this month, in the second webinar, we're talking about land cover. We have two data tools related to land cover that we're excited to share with you. But we can start with just a little bit of information about our organization. If you want to go to the next slide. So if you are not familiar with us, maybe you're newer to our work, the Native Lands Advocacy Project is a project of Village Earth, a 501c3 nonprofit that was founded in 1993, really with a mission of connecting grassroots communities to the resources they need for their own self-determination. And Village Earth has been and is working internationally, but specifically working with communities, with Native communities in the US, led to the founding of the Native Lands Advocacy Project in 2019. And alongside the founding of NLAP was the launch of the Native Land Information System, or nativeland.info. This is our website. It's a repository and also a living and evolving resource, hosting resources for Native communities, different data tools. The next slide has a bit more information about our platform. So on the Native Land Information System, we have over 120 free public resources related to these topics of agriculture and rangeland management, climate adaptation and mitigation, land tenure, and historical documentation. If you've been to any of our webinars or if you've seen us speaking at conferences, then you know I like to emphasize these two words, free and public. We don't charge for access to these tools. There's no paywall, no fee system or subscription of any kind. And they're public as well. So we don't publish private tribal data. We're working with data that's in the public domain and processing it for tribal geographies, presenting it in these interfaces that allow tribes to access the data that's actually relevant and useful to their interests. One little note is we did just launch our sponsorship program. We're very excited about it. And so if you're with an organization that's values align with ours and you'd really like to support our work, that's an option. We encourage you to reach out and contact us. We'd love to talk with you about that. But you know, for the average user of our site accessing our data, we're not charging any kind of fee to access them. You can go to the next slide. So today we're looking at these two tools. We have a map and a dashboard, both built off of this national land cover database data. The difference, we kind of sort our data tools into these two categories of maps and dashboards, and there certainly is some overlap. The difference is really in what information is being prioritized. So our maps are prioritizing this visual exploration, being able to look around these data layers and zoom in and really examine what's happening, you know, depending on the data layer. And then our dashboards might still have map views built in, as you can see on the right here, but are really prioritizing access to the data itself, being able to pull specific data points and numbers. And so we're going to walk through each of these tools. But first, we're just going to talk a little bit about the data source itself. So if you want to go to the next slide. Land cover is, in a broad sense, land cover refers to what's on the surface of the earth. So this could be developed lands, wetlands, forests, croplands, etc. And we refer to it as a Keystone data tool because really the sky is kind of the limit in terms of what it can be used for. It's so foundational just for understanding what is happening on your lands and trends over time. And so you can see here in this second paragraph, we're talking about land cover data can be used for assessment and planning related to agriculture, climate change, land use, disaster preparedness, economic development, and more. And so, and I think this final note is important too. We emphasize this with all of our data that ideally these data sets are being ground proofed, and that you know what's happening on your lands, you're seeing what's happening, different changes. And so this data is not meant to replace any of that on the ground knowledge, but really to support it and to provide documentation that you can use in your planning and in reporting and such. If you want to go to the next slide. I will pass to Ode to talk a little bit about the data set itself that we use to build these two tools, and then we'll go into demoing them.
Sure, thank you, Emma. So the National Land Cover Database is produced by the United States Geological Survey, their Earth Resource Observation and Science Center. And it's part of a larger suite of land cover mapping and monitoring data. It's produced by, you often refer as the acronym MRLC, the Multi-Resolution Land Characteristic Consortium. And it's a group of federal agencies that gather this data. And the objective of the NLCD is to provide the US with nationally complete, current, consistent, and public domain information on the nation's land cover. And as Emma was suggesting, there's many iterative research analysis that can be conducted from this base layer, which is why, again, we refer to it as a Keystone data set. Next slide, please. So it provides data at a 30 meter spatial resolution. For those of you who are familiar with GIS specifics, it uses Landsat satellite records of the Earth, and it divides it into 16 land cover classifications. As Emma was saying, we're looking at some developed, and there's several categories for developed land. There's also water data, open water, perennial ice, snow, and then a series of different classifications for forest: deciduous forest, evergreen, mixed forest, shrub, grassland, pasture, hay, cultivated crops, woody wetlands, and emergent herbaceous wetlands. But some of those can be extracted for different derivative analyses. For instance, the cultivated crops can give you a particular look at if you're trying to isolate crops from the rest of the classifications. So there's just such a myriad of ways that you can be using this resource, not just as an overview of all of the land cover classifications, but really to pinpoint what you're trying to analyze for your specific case study. Thank you. And so we were looking at, so traditionally we've been looking at the legacy NLCD versus a different update of this data set, which is the annual NLCD. And so the legacy NLCD is looking at data across 9 epochs from 2001 to 2021. So in our resources, we have them laid out. And we've been looking at this legacy NLCD. And the annual NLCD is a new layer that's come out as of October 2024. And it's planning to really show data covers every year from 1985 to 2023 in a coterminous United States. And that plans to also include Alaska and Hawaii in future years, which would be super great, because the way that we had to really work around was a little complicated for Alaska and Hawaii. And so in the tools that you're all going to see today, the NLAP has used the legacy NLCD data, but right now we're working on with our GIS team to include the new annual NLCD data moving forward, and maybe retroactively to update the dashboards as well, all the way to 1985, which would be really great for analyses looking at the evolution of biodiversity or other types of analyses looking at the effects of climate change or so many other possibilities there. Anna, if you want to
Yeah,
take over.
I'm really excited about that annual data. I think it's going to be so powerful to have just that broad range of years. So we'll take a look at those 2 data tools that we've developed using the land cover data. I always like to start from the homepage of our website to show people how they can find these tools. Today we're looking at one map and one dashboard. So under this data tools tab, you would navigate, to whichever category you're looking for. But you can also use our search function. The next slide shows the results for when you just search for the term land cover. The far left result is actually a blog post where we announced some changes we made last time we updated this dashboard. But then that middle and far right example, or search results, sorry, are the map and the dashboard respectively. So those are 2 ways you could go about finding those tools on our site. But the next slide shows the map. We're going to start by taking a look at this map, and then we'll move on to the dashboard. This map has the term or the word viewer in the title, and that's intentional. A few of our maps have viewer in the title, and that's just to indicate that they're pretty straightforward tools. Really what they are is the data layer overlaid with reservation boundaries. And it's allowing you to just get this kind of visual, detailed exploration of the data layer. We have some maps that are a bit more involved, you might say. In some cases, you might be able to, for example, click on a reservation boundary and it might generate a pie chart or a graph for you. This map doesn't have those functionalities, and that's why we just call it a viewer. But it still can be really useful. And so the next few slides are going to go through some recordings of different ways you can use this tool. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, so this is just going to play through some of the ways we can explore this map. So we're opening the legend here, scrolling back up. And of course, with a map like this, you can just kind of zoom in and scroll around with your cursor as you want. But we've also built in the ability to search for your reservation if you have a specific reservation in mind that you want to take a look at. We'll do that in a moment. So we'll take a look at the Tulalip Reservation. I was born and raised in Washington State. Thought it'd be fun to be in my backyard for today's webinar. So just searching for that reservation, and then the map automatically pulls it up. This map by default is set to the 2019 data layer. And we'll show you how to toggle between the different years so you can look at, how it's changed over time. But you can see here that there's, more development to the east of this reservation. In the center and further to the west, there's more forests and even some wetlands. And then, of course, that open water of the Puget Sound. And you'd be able to zoom in very closely and examine these different land covers if there was a specific site of interest you wanted to look at, but we're just kind of looking at a high level right now. This is that layer list I mentioned, so you can see there's some Hawaii-specific layers, some Alaska-specific layers. We're going to scroll down to CONUS, that's the continental United States. We'll deselect 2019, and there's all these different years of that data, and so we can look at 2001. We can see some changes from 2019. We can look at 2011. Seeing changes, there's more development in the east. Then we can go back to 2019. Of course, you can look at all of the years, but just show these three for today. Now these maps, you can screenshot them. You can also print them. There's a print button up there in the top right, and if you click it, it'll just kind of open a dialog box where you can choose how to format what you're printing. You can save it as a PDF, and you can use these maps in reports or documents or for whatever planning purposes you have in mind. So it's just kind of a basic introduction to navigating these maps. We showed you how to search for your reservation, but you can also search for an address. I'm just going to put in a zip code here because I didn't want to zoom in on someone's house, but you could put in an address. I believe you can do latitude and longitude as well. And so this is really useful if you have a specific plot of land you want to look at. Maybe you're a landowner, you want to look at your own land. Or maybe you want to look at a site of interest for your tribe, a significant cultural site or ecological site. It allows you to just search for that address and it'll pull it right up for you. Okay, the last thing, do you want a full screen again, Marin? Sorry, we didn't have these technical issues with the slides last time, but the last thing we wanted to feature just on this map viewer is the draw tool. This one gets kind of, I think, slept on a little bit, but can be very useful for individual landowners or for tribal planning. This really just allows you to kind of visually highlight a specific area. I've chosen kind of an arbitrary area. This is actually off reservation in California, I believe. But just to show an example. So this is the draw tool. You can kind of adjust the color settings how you want. It might take some playing around to figure out what works for you, but for this, I'm setting kind of a transparent white interior, a bright blue border, and then we'll draw a shape with that. There is at the bottom of this dialog box an undo button and a clear button, so you can kind of, if you mess up your drawing, you can reset pretty easily. It's pretty forgiving, but we're just going to draw a shape here. Like I said, this is arbitrary. This isn't a specific site that's particularly important in any way. It's just that we're going to highlight some kind of land cover changes here. So you just hold down your cursor and draw your shape. Turned off the specific land cover map layers to do this. We're just working with that gray base layer. Again, if you were like an individual landowner, this would help you actually see, the roads and stuff. But then we can go and turn back on those land cover layers. And again, this is just a visual tool. It really allows you to highlight a specific area. And then you could screenshot that or print that for whatever planning purposes you might have. So we'll start with 2001, and you can just kind of see the change in land cover over time as we go through each of these years. All right, we will continue on. So that's the map viewer tool. Fairly straightforward, but really does allow for a high level of exploration. I think it is really fun to just go poke around in that map and really see what's happening in the land cover on lands that are important to me over time. And but this is the dashboard that we've built. We'd say that this is a bit more data rich, or there's a bit more value added here, because really what we're doing here is giving you direct access to the numbers, to the data itself for the land cover um, on reservations. And so similar to with the map, we'll go through some kind of video walkthroughs. And just before even starting this recording, I went ahead and selected every reservation in the state of Washington. Of course, you can filter for an individual reservation and see the land cover data just on that land. I thought for the purpose of this webinar, it'd be interesting to do kind of a state level, more regional approach. You can go ahead and start playing it. But I selected those reservations before recording it, so you didn't have to sit through me. I think it's over 40, including off reservation trust land. So I didn't make you sit through me selecting them all, but here we're just scrolling through that list of native land areas, and you can see there's a ton. So there's a search function there if you want to search for the name of the native land you're looking for, rather than having to scroll through them all. You can do that. But when you use this native land area filter, it's going to automatically adjust the map view on the left. It'll zoom in to the land you've selected, and that pie chart will also automatically adjust. And you can see that by default, this is set to 2019 as well. And so there's this pie chart presenting the acreage and the percentage of the total land cover for each of those land cover types. And so this really allows you to see, the dominant and less dominant land cover types on the lands you're looking at. Again, this is for 2019, so we can go look at some of these previous years, and you'll see the map layer adjust to that year of data, and you'll also see that pie chart, the little wedges adjust as well. So this is the first tab of that dashboard. If you look kind of up near the top, you see there's 3 tabs, and we'll look at the change over time tab next. That's on the next slide. All right, so the change over time tab, fairly self-evident by the title, but it's showing these land cover trends over time. So what you do is you select the land cover type you want to look at. The nice thing about this dashboard is that it carries over the native land area you've selected. So those Washington reservations are all still selected. I didn't have to reselect them all again when I changed tabs. And so right now it's showing the data for dwarf scrub from 2001 to 2019 for each year. I think it is so interesting to look at these different land cover types and look at their trends over time. You can do kind of regional analyses, and obviously it's really useful just looking at individual reservations. So here we can see that cultivated cropland has increased since 2001 on reservations in Washington state. There's a percentage as well. It's telling you the percent change from the previous year. And one thing I wanted to show is that you can kind of make the dashboard do math for you. So if you just select, if you want to know how much it has changed from 2001 to 2019, if you just select those two data points, it'll tell you that there's been a 5.604% increase in cultivated crops between those 2 years. So I just wanted to highlight that because, yeah, you can kind of make the dashboard do a little bit of math for you. We can go back to all the years though, and we'll just look at a few of these other land cover types just to kind of show you how you can see these trends. It's deciduous forest. So you can kind of start thinking about, you can use this data in tandem with the maps, for example, right? That you can look at these charts and see, okay, development is increasing on these reservations in Washington state. And then you could go look at the map and really look at those different years of data and see, like, where is development happening? Where are the croplands? Where are, if evergreen forests are increasing or decreasing, where is that happening? And is there some kind of habitat encroachment occurring? Or you can really just start to think of the ways that these resources can kind of be used in tandem to really get a robust view of what is happening on your lands and to make informed decisions for the future. And this is the last one we'll look at here. We'll look at grasslands. All right, so that's that second tab, that change over time tab. And then the last one we'll look at is the table explorer. That's the next slide. Okay. This is something we build into most, if not all of our dashboards, really just allowing a direct access to the numbers themselves. So you can play around with these filters. We'll just select all the land cover types, all the years. And again, it brought over those land areas I had already selected. So we're still just looking at Washington reservations. And it's just giving you the numbers, right? So the acres of each land cover type for each year. And it's also in that far right column calculating the percent change from year to year. And so this just scrolls down through the data. But you can filter this, if you only wanted to look at one or a couple specific land cover types, you could filter just for that. Or maybe you just want the numbers for 1 year, and so you could filter for that 1 year. Um, So that's the land cover dashboard. And then the next slide, I just wanted to quickly highlight, just quickly, this is a zoomed in view of our dashboard, obviously, but I just wanted to highlight that in the bottom right, there's this download button. So of course you can always take a screenshot of the dashboard. You can even take a screenshot of just one part of it. Like if you just want to use the pie chart in a report somewhere, you can do that. But you can also download it as an image, a PDF, or a PowerPoint. All of our tools are Creative Commons licensed, so just give us a citation if you're using them in some kind of a public report of some kind. But we want these to be useful to you, so please take these graphics and use them in your documentation and for your planning. You can go to the next slide though. So we talk about this as a Keystone data tool. I'm gonna talk a little quick here, or kind of maybe speed through this slide a little bit because of technical difficulties. We are coming up to the end of our time and I want to allow time for questions. But we talk about this as a Keystone data tool because really it can be used for anything, for any kind of planning that you're doing. Because understanding what's happening on the land is kind of step one to knowing how to plan around that land and for what to do with it. So some uses that we have seen with this data are analyzing grassland trends and potential encroachment by urbanization or croplands, examining trends in ecologically and culturally significant areas, informing the development of agriculture and integrated resource management plans. This data can be used in those documents, monitoring trends in and around wetlands, and analyzing intact habitat. And that final one, we wanted to provide you an example of how this data has been built off of. So the next slide is our last recording. The intact habitat layer is another tool on our site. We're not going to go into a ton of detail here. If you want to explore it, you can check it out on our site, or you can ask us about it. We'd be happy to walk you through it. But essentially, it's showing areas of minimally disturbed natural areas. And so as an example, we'll look at the Yakima Reservation. And you can see these green areas. There's kind of 3 categories of best, better, and good in terms of how intact the habitat is. But maybe you're looking at this and you want to understand what's happening on the land here, right? What are those intact habitats? What are the fragmented habitats? You can actually look at the land cover layer underneath it. So we'll go to that layers panel. And load the land cover layer underneath it. There we go. And so you can kind of start to see, in the east, there's a lot of croplands, there's some pasture as well. We'll open the legend in a second so you can see, but we'll just zoom in on a specific area as an example. And we can use a slider tool, actually. I love this. This is so fun to me. So the intact habitat layer is on the left, the land cover is on the right, and you can compare them and really see. So there's that intact habitat layer, but then when we swipe it to the left, we can see all that intact habitat, or almost all of it, is grasslands. There's even some wetlands, some of that blue, and then in the further to the west, there's some forests as well. So this could really be a way for you to analyze maybe potential areas that your tribe wants to implement more conservation or protection, or areas where maybe there's some encroachment happening or development happening alongside sites that you might want to protect, or at least be more aware of. And so this is just one of really many examples of the ways that the land cover data can be combined with other data sets to really get a clear, a detailed picture of what's happening on your lands. That brings us to the end, though. Our final slide is our contact information, our socials, as well as information for our next webinar. We'll be talking about the cropland data layer, what's growing on US native lands. We'd love to see you there as well. But yes, please feel free to drop your questions. I'm sorry for the technical issues that we're kind of running up on the end of our time. We'll stay if people have questions, but we understand that people have to go. But I'll also pass to Ode if you had any thoughts you wanted to add.
Sure, thanks, Emma. I will be short because I'm aware of the time, but I just wanted to insist on the fact that, as you've seen, we're not just a repository for resources, but we're truly a full research center that's dedicated to native land and land planners. And basically, we also want to highlight that we don't do any of that in a vacuum, but we are part of a broader ecosystem of partners, of key native-led organizations in Indian country. And we are really thankful for instance, Native American Ag Fund for funding a lot of these research, but also for the Indian Land Tenure Foundation that's definitely been at the inception of this project. And we work closely with the Indigenous Food and Ag Initiative and other key stakeholders, but also with individual tribes, tribal organizations, grassroots organizations also, and intertribal organizations. And so we really could not do that and identify the needs of native land stewards if it wasn't for that ecosystem of partners. I also want to insist on the fact that we do not publish any private tribal information and data on the native land information system. We only use data that's already in a public domain to create these analyses in support of tribal sovereignty. And so we take that very seriously. And while we do develop resources with tribes individually on some specific tribal data sets, you will not see those resources published on our public platform. Thank you. So I don't see any questions here. I've addressed some of that during the webinars. There were some questions pending. You're also welcome to reach out to us really directly to ask your questions and discuss your specific needs or your specific tribe's needs. We can address those then.
Yeah, I'm just seeing the questions that you answered, Ode. Some really interesting questions about buffalo corridors, about migration routes of wildlife, about LiDAR. And I think that just speaks to the many uses that this data layer has and can be used for. I just see a message about a new reservation boundary and updating that. Oh, do you want to speak to how we update or where we're pulling those reservation boundaries from and when they get updated?
Yes, absolutely. So unfortunately, the most comprehensive resource we have for reservation boundaries are from the official federal sources. And so that's where we pull it from. That's because it's updated every year. So I don't know if for your specific reservation, you're mentioning that if that's going to be integrated within this federal data set. But it would be really interesting to talk about ways in which we can just add your layers and your updated boundaries to our data sets moving forward if people are being proactive about this. So I really would be interested in having this conversation if you want to reach out to us about it.
Looks like there's one more about Landsat. I don't know if we'll be touching specifically much on Landsat in the next webinar. We'll be focusing on that cropland data layer, but we do talk about the data sources. If that's something you have interest in, you can feel free to contact us. Sorry, yeah, I guess my my answer is we might touch on it, but probably not in a lot of detail. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Thanks. Yeah, and I saw this is Tanya's question. It's really nice to see you on this webinar, and you're welcome to reach out to us anyways. It's been a while, and we have so many more resources to show you. So reach out to us. Thanks.
Great. Well, I think we can wrap up, it looks like. Thank you all so much for attending. Thank you for bearing with us with our little technical issues, and we hope to see you again in our future webinars. Again, please feel free to reach out. We have a mailing list. We send out kind of periodic updates about new content that we have, new resources we produced. Sign up for that if you want to stay kind of the most up to date with what we're doing. But again, yeah, thank you all for being here, and we'll see you later.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.